Greetings, whiskey folk, and welcome back to Drinking Out Loud. My name's Adam Bradshaw, and I am here at the Strath to tell you all about some Spanish Castanuts. This is from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society of Canada's September 2023 Outturn, and it's a beauty. And if you've been watching these in order, you'll have followed on from previous videos that Evan from Kensington Wine Market made the tasting order this month, and it has been a wonderful roller coaster of flavour. And this is where it got really interesting, looking at it in advance. It was like, why are we going from a peated whiskey to an unpeated whiskey? Well, I mean, for a start, the Highland Park wasn't overly peated. It was peated, but, you know, not enough to wreck your palate. This is a big, bold whiskey. And after tasting it, it made sense. But it's still, even if the Highland Park was a little peatier, even if there were the same kind of concentration of flavours, it was really refreshing, actually, for a change to go peat and not peat, because it really highlighted the difference between them. And yeah, it was a tasting of contrasts, and I really enjoyed that. So, my third time trying it, let's see if I like it as much as I did before. This is some Spanish Castanuts, which is super cool. This is only the fourth time in the history of the SMWS Canada that we've had a whiskey from this distillery, and it's a particularly good distillery that I really, really, really enjoy. All right, so let's crack her open, shall we? Last time I had a whiskey from this distillery was a boutique bottling. It had a really interesting artwork on the label. But as much as I like artwork on a label, there is something beautiful about the classic. I mean, I'm a graphic designer. I love typographic pieces. And, you know, there's beauty in the written word. And I do love the classic SMWS. Well, I love the classic SMWS labels, don't get me wrong, but I love the new classic SMWS labels as well. This is, yeah. This is a beauty. All right, well, before I get too carried away in my own experience, here are the official SMWS tasting notes. We collided at some speed into a wall of plums, bruised apples, and spicy chorizo, before rebounding into the safety of soft leather, fruitcake, dough, and earthy rhubarb crumble. Hazelnuts, walnuts, and burnt coconut began to rain down from above, smashing into mounds of muscovado sugar and cocoa powder. With just a few drops of water, a more refined vista appeared. One that bound bananas and fresh figs to cured ham and toasted pine nuts. Roasted chestnuts and black cherries then rolled in from afar, accompanied by bitter chocolate praline, coconut husk, and dusty leather. After 13 years in a bourbon hogshead, this was transferred into a Spanish oak Oloroso hogshead. And you know, I didn't really notice in the moment when I was tasting these before, live in person at our preview tastings, how often it happened this month that we've got bourbon and sherry casks together, but we've got, more importantly, in my mind, the European and American oak casks together, because it ties in with the theme. We're talking about the gathering. We're talking about the gathering, uniting the clans. And, you know, I think the coming together of different woods is a beautiful, a beautiful sort of adjacent message to that whole coming together of people from all over the world to enjoy whiskey together. Oh, this is a good one, though. All right. Ooh, that is quite sherried. There's a lot of sherry going on there. It's first fill Oloroso for the finish, and it is a finish of 3 years. It's 3-ish years. So the particulars of this is 6.64. So only 64 of these have ever been released, and it's Distillery 6. You know, they bottled this early on, and then in the last 40 years, we've only had 64. So we've had like 1.5 casks of this a year in the SMWS, which is very small compared to the, 361 Highland Parks we've had now. Yeah, beautiful. So it started off in the ex-bourbon, finished in a first fill Oloroso hogshead. It's a Speyside whiskey, aged for 16 years. It was distilled on the 29th of August, 2006. They managed to get 264 bottles out of the cask, and it came out at an ABV of 58%. The last time we had something from this distillery, there's definitely evidence of me doing it on YouTube, because it was way back in July of 2020 when I just started this YouTube channel, because this whole thing started because of the pandemic. And back in July of 2020, of course, we couldn't have in-person tastings. So there's a lot of people that, even if you've been a member of the SMWS for 5 years, you might have never had or seen something from this distillery before from them. It's kind of cool. This distillery is known for weighty, nutty spirits, and this is no exception. That's the big thing I got out of this, is just how dense the flavours were. It's a TARDIS of flavours. I've said it before, but it's a line that bears repeating because I love Doctor Who. It is a lot going on. It's fruits, but it's the more interesting fruits. Rhubarb really stands out to me in the tasting notes from the SMWS here. Yeah, it's not just a strawberry. Strawberry's anyone's game. This is rhubarb. Yeah, cocoa powder. Yeah, there's a darkness to it. Fresh figs. Yeah, it's not the dried figs. There's some life to it still. It's a fresh fig. You're right. It's not got the concentrated, deep, dark, oozing sugars of a dried fruit, so much as it has the vibrancy and complex flavors of a fresher fruit. Although the roasted chestnuts is a good shoot. And actually, the first time I had this whiskey on the Thursday tasting, I really jammed with the whole roasted chestnut thing, and I love roasted chestnuts. I actually used roasted chestnuts as the picture on the slideshow as well. I actually went home and opened a bag of roasted chestnuts that I bought when I was in England last year, that I've been saving for a rainy day. And part of the reason I did that is I booked my flights back home. I'm going home for Christmas, which is going to be wonderful. So I know I can get more in just a couple of months. But yeah, I love a good chestnut. Better freshly roasted, of course, but no one seems to do that here. Maybe there's a lack of chestnut trees in Victoria. I'm not sure. This one was one that I enjoyed a drop of water with, much against the advice of Lawrence Graham, who, keeper of the Quake, he knows what he's talking about. But he, as a rule of thumb, Lawrence says that you should add water to whiskies, the prevailing cask, the dominant cask sort of type. If you would add water to the previous contents of that cask, then you would add water to the whiskey. So ex-bourbon whiskies, yeah, you'd add water or maybe ice to a bourbon, so add some water to an ex-bourbon whiskey. You wouldn't think about adding water to a sherry, so don't worry about adding water to an ex-sherry whiskey. And that actually is a really good rule of thumb for a lot of people. I generally, when I'm exploring whiskey, try it both ways anyway. But yeah, and I think 9 times out of 10, that is the case, that I don't think sherried whiskies necessarily need water as much as ex-bourbon whiskies. But in this case, it kind of made a difference to me. It made it softer, a little bit more powdered sugar. There was the sweetness was still there, but it was a little different. I just said that it wasn't the big, deep, rich sort of molasses sweetnesses that you get from dried fruit. It was a little bit more lighter. This, I think, knocks it up a touch again. It's even lighter. I said powdered sugar. Yeah, even a little more floral on the nose after a bit of water. And that fresh fig. I was at a barbecue on the weekend where they had 3 fig trees in the backyard, and I was incredibly jealous because I love figs. Unfortunately, they weren't ready yet. They were still on the tree. They weren't ripe. I'm hoping I get invited to another barbecue there in a month's time so I can go and have some figs. Alright, so this distillery, like I said, known for its weighty and nutty spirit, and it's designed specifically for sherry casks. And the way they do that was with short fermentation, and they're extra cold condensers as well. It's owned by Dewar's, used in the William Lawson blend, which is, or was, I guess, particularly popular in Russia. I don't think they sell it there anymore. It does have an official bottling, but rather quizzically, they don't use the name of the distillery as the name of the official bottling, which is weird, because it's Macduff. And I think Macduff's a great name for a whiskey and a distillery. It's very Scottish sounding. It's fun. You can make all the Macduff man jokes you want from The Simpsons. Duff is synonymous with whiskey, with Duffton. But yeah, for whatever reason, when it was first released, they called it the Deveron. and then changed it to Glendeveron, and now it is simply just Deveron. So if there's Deveron somewhere in the name, it's actually a Macduff. This is available right now for those who are quick on the draw for $298.17. $298.17 at strathliquor.com/SMWS, or if we're sold out, one of our partner retailers across the country, Kensington Wine Market, Keg and Cork, Arc, and Legacy. All right, so got 2 more bottles left to talk about from this outturn. Join me in the following videos. Only one of them is a whiskey, though, and that's up next. So, stand your bar. See you on the next one.
The folks out here are kind. Let me see.